I'm thankful that we are all here, and I believe we had a 100th birthday of Councilwoman Marsha McKenzie's mother.
Yes.
And I'm thankful that she was able to celebrate and receive the greetings from the council on her 100th birthday. That we don't get to do that very often, and that's a wonderful opportunity to do that. So we're happy to have honored her. We don't have any scheduled or requested special presentations or public comments today for the 1 o'clock session. So that will expeditiously take us to item number 2, which is our city manager's report. I will, under public comments, take a moment and thank Vice Mayor Avery Johnson for the invitation to the council and the table that he provided to us at the 100 Black Men Banquet. They have raised $1 million since their inception for scholarships and mentoring of the next generation of Cleveland and Bradley County students. And it was a wonderful evening, and I was honored to be at the founders table, Vice Mayor Avery Johnson. And so Avery, thank you for that. Mr. Fivas, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Today I just want to let you know that our next meeting on March 13th, that we will have a little bit of budget planning session. So if you have questions on the upcoming budget, or have any thoughts, that was we're in the midst of developing the budget. So certainly you're a part of that process, and we want to make sure that you have the opportunity to discuss. We'll go have a brief at this meeting, a brief overview of some of the projects and some of those things, but if you have questions before that, let us know so that we can prepare any information. Item B is that on top of this, and we talked at our staff meeting this morning, as we're looking at putting on paper a long-range capital plan. Of course, that this wouldn't be funded because you're talking about fiscal years 26 through 28. But in order to have planning, if there's larger projects or things that we haven't covered, we can talk about that. I guess budget planning. But we're looking in the next couple meetings to have a draft document, and this is going to be a living, breathing document so that we know kind of what's on the horizon, what some things are out there that are a little bit bigger projects, and so we can have a little bit further conversation above the horizon. I'm not going to go through the whole litany of projects that we have ongoing. We do have, obviously, the big ones are Mouse Creek intersection. We're getting ready. We have pretty close to having the first leg of that done. And then, Tommy, we've talked about different things. Are you going directly next across the street to the tire store?
Yes, at the wall there.
So you'll see that probably in the next couple weeks, few weeks?
Hopefully this week the rain will hold off.
Yeah, if the rain doesn't go, we'll start on that. So, that project, it took us a long time to get the foundations poured for the mast arms, which are massive. How deep were those? Were those 20 feet?
I don't remember this.
They were at least 25.
25 feet deep, and it took a while to get that. And so, at some point, you'll see those mast arms erected out there and going. But things are going well on that. We have the LIC North project, which is still going fairly slow. Do we have a new time for that one, Jonathan, that we've heard? Because I think the last they said was February, but I don't think they're close to making that.
No, we had rain days, so they'll add those extra rain days to it. It's definitely mid-March now.
So June. And then we're starting on the final stretch of the Dalton Pike sidewalk project, which is ongoing. If there's any other, probably want to mention the Mosby Park. We finally got our materials in for the amphitheater / pavilion. It's well under construction. everything is ordered to put the final touches on there. And having the arch and having everything, there'll be a decent amount of landscaping and for beautification and really finish it off. And we're probably looking at March or April or so to have the community grand opening on that new enhanced playground area. That amphitheater pavilion was actually a good idea. It was generated from the neighborhood. We had a different thought, and the people in the neighborhood came to the public meeting. So it does matter when you come to public meetings, and it's really gonna be a great, that can be a venue for the neighborhood, the churches in the neighborhood that wanna have an outside event on whatever day of the week. But the basketball courts look great, that they don't have the fence around them. It just looks more open and it's, we intend to finish that off and make that as highest quality as any other parks that we have. We have a number of other projects that are in the process, and happy to answer any questions on any of them that you have that you had questions about.
I'd say thank you I went back Carolina and the detention pond, they're about halfway done, I would guess. And you can tell, I can now see it's hard for me to see on paper what's gonna happen, but it makes sense. I even talked this morning to some of the guys, they were fired up, they were running cars. So, thank you for that. To my colleagues, if you can drive by Carolina and take a look at it, yeah, so well overdue.
And what's the next detention pond you think that we'll get to?
We'll go to there across from Aubrey's.
Or is it that or the other one?
Supposed to be one by Aubrey's. They may do it in Clearwater at the same time. But it's a channel modification, it's not a pond.
Okay.
Which one's he talking about, Joe?
Well, there's two projects. There's one that is at Clearwater, which is a channel modification.
Right.
And then there's the other one, which will
Pains is
I know you're talking, yeah.
what's his first?
create another pond
I like that. Thank you.
behind the Church of God of Prophecy, I
Right.
believe, across from Aubrey's.
Yeah. When are they starting on that, do you know?
They're in right away, negotiations right now with the church.
You think they'll be working on both of them at the same time, or?
Maybe if they can get them at the same time they wanted, the goal would be the same contractor would do both of them, but
Okay.
it just depends on Clearwater is probably progressing faster, but the Corps has the other one on their list as number 2, so they want it to go first, but the other one's faster. If that makes any sense.
Okay.
Joe, can I follow up with a question? Jonathan, help me, I was asked last night, are these retention ponds or detention ponds? And I don't know.
For the most part, detention, they may hold a little water, but for the most part, they'll drain
Detain.
all the way.
Okay. Detain. Thank you. I can
A
remember that.
retention looks like a pond some of the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've actually have active conversations, to your question, this is a different project on, at the Avery Johnson Park, you have that large facility there, and just so you know that facility is not just for the park, it drains how many acres? But we may make that into, more of a retention pond than being a detention pond, which is just raising the output, which will, so we're looking at that, and we'll talk to you.
It has extra volume, so we're having a hard time getting grass, so it would, if we could raise it and turn it into a water feature, it would still hold enough water to drain.
So it would act as both.
It would act as both.
Yeah.
It would look better as a pond all the time.
Yeah, because it would have water in it all the time, or most of the time, yeah.
Yeah, and actually may, if it's constructed right, it actually decrease the amount of mosquitoes and bugs, because the water does there, when you get that, it just is basically a swamp. And,
A retention pond is like Spring Creek. It's a retention
Davis Street, McCoy Street. The state has our money. They've indicated that they are working on the final design for that. And the good thing is they've voiced interest in moving that as fast as they can because they had large parts of this already designed, and they, over several years, they have to make some updates to that. The Transportation Commissioner is coming in to speak, and I meant to write that down. Remember that date, Mayor?
It's our next MPO, March 8th.
March 8th, and he's, I think, gonna be talking about how they're going to have some more restrictive timelines on some of the projects, which will help alleviate some of our concerns and try to get this one through the process as soon as fast as possible. We've had conversations with our delegation, and they all seem very supportive. Kevin Rayburg, Dan Howell, Senator Lowe, for that.
Mr. Five, it's just a programming note. I did get a note that the last 2 or 3 MPOs that he was scheduled to be at, he Zoomed in and was not here in person. So I didn't want those watching from home to be disappointed that the commissioner was not coming potentially in person.
That's fair. So the good news is it's funded, or they have the money, they're working on the designs, and things are progressing. You know, you go over to that intersection and it's not getting any better, and I'm not telling anything that you or anyone here that doesn't know is, you know, that those backups sometimes now go past 20th Street. And,
Oh, yes, they do.
the update on 775 Raider Drive is that we've had the closing, things have been signed, had the money. We're still waiting for like the keys and all of that stuff. So we're almost there to have the transition for that, and just wanted everyone to be aware of that. I think that we're sufficiently close. That we have the deed. We just don't have all the exchange the property and the keys and all of that. And as far as I know, that they've been paid their money. So, moving on to the agenda,
Be sure to get the gate code.
and then that's part of trying to get all that information.
Where is this?
The gate code.
Where?
At
On the
Raider.
consent agenda, for the agenda, we have items that we've discussed at the last meeting. One is the zoning ordinance 2302, which is rezoning 2.28 acres on from unincorporated to R1. And then you have the final passage of zoning ordinance 22.03. And I think these are all out at Benjamin Crest, those subdivisions out by Frontage Drive. And then 2304 is the same thing, final passage of 2305, which allows the use. This is an amendment to the municipal code. We've already voted on this, allows uses to remove from many warehouse facilities, including section 2.10.2 traditional uses. Item E is requesting a portion of South Lake Highway to be renamed in honor of Bradley Central graduate and Barrett's basketball star Ryan Howard. Item F is declaring various items as surplus to be sold on gov deals or to trade in credits for new equipment. Moving to item business. 10A, amending the municipal code to increase the number of Class 2 beer permits from 16 to 20.
Can I ask a question on that? On page 22, the whereas is say 18, but the ordinance says 20.
That's a typo.
Okay.
Christie's fixed it on the original.
When was 16 set? How long ago?
3 or 4 years, I guess, so. It's for COVID.
What is class 2?
On premises consumption, that's not a restaurant. So they can sell food, but they don't have to sell 50% food. So, and it could be, in this case, hotels will have like a kiosk where, you know, they sell cookies and snacks and cokes, and they wanna sell beer, and their customer, you know, will go back to the room and drink it, because they don't have a bar, so they would get class 2. So that's one of the permit requests that they've got 2, I think, that have asked for a class 2 that can't get one because it's capped at 16. So we wrote it to 18, and then Joe said, why don't we adjust it to 20, because if these 2 people get these immediately, then we'll be, you know, we'll be out of it. So that's why.
Do you ever peg these to the size of the municipality?
That's been in y'all's code since forever.
Yeah. I mean, are there other municipalities that peg it to the size?
Historically, the reason those are capped is because if you're a restaurant, those are unlimited. If you're a convenience store, those are unlimited. Historically, back in the 70s and 80s, these were the places where you might have a little bit more of a problem from law enforcement issues. I can name some places that you wouldn't recognize by name that existed back then that, you know, they don't sell any food, all they sell is beer, right? Well, so on Friday night at 10 o'clock, the police department might get a call. So historically, they were capped on the idea that you don't want a bunch of these, but, you know, they do sell, most of them do sell some food, but they don't want to be a restaurant and do the 50% food sales. They don't have to have a cap. A lot of cities don't cap them, but I think that's the historical reason they were always capped. They were capped in the old 81 code.
That context
Does
helps.
that, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
10B, ordinance 23 dash 07. I'm gonna have Robert come up, and he can go through what's going on with this real quick.
So, this item, is specifically to, clarify language in our code that is enforced by our code enforcement inspectors already, but this clarifies language specifically so that there are no questions about the legality of it. It's, when you've got old appliances or old furniture just sitting outside, this specifically says it is not to be kept out there. That's the intent of it. It's already in the code, but it's kind of tied in with several other items and not clear, so we wanted to be specific. And there's questions on it, I'm happy to answer them, but that's the gist of it. We just want to be specific when we're enforcing these rules.
Does that cover, electrical smokers out on the front porch too, that are plugged in? That's almost a commercial size, would that be considered part of that? Cause I know there's some people that have those.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think in this, that's more like a use of it like a grill or something. It is electrical, but we have power outlets that we permit through
Yeah.
construction code outside. So, we're usually targeting washers and dryers that kids can get into, they fill up with water, we target couches that, you know, could
Ranges.
burn, refrigerators that are
Ranges.
safety issues.
Ranges too?
Yes, ranges, anything like that. We're not targeting like kind of the grills and things, I mean, those, we expect to see that stuff outside.
Councilman Cast, I actually think the smoker that I'm most familiar with says, do not use indoors.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, there's some, there's some that look really good, and it looks almost like a range, you know what I'm saying? I've seen people have them on front porch.
That's above my pay grade. I don't have any of that.
Very much so.
So my colleagues, this will help. I know the last couple of times I've been to city court, Mr. Kimball was there. This would be much clearer
Sure.
for the city judge.
Councilman Estes is right. Occasionally what will happen is the code enforcement people will cite somebody for junk and debris, and they'll have 16 pieces of, you know, junk or debris, and it's an easy case, but invariably, the the person who's there will ask Judge Banks, well, now, I don't have to move that washer, do I, because it's new, and I'm planning on putting that in my house, but it's gonna be a few months, because I've got to remodel, the room where it's going and stuff like that, and so you get into the nuance of, well, is it junk or is it a new appliance, right? So, this way, it's clearer that it specifically tells you what it is, right? The other problem is, there was somebody who came in one time and they said, well, I don't have any air conditioning, so I put my couch out here when it's hot. But the problem was the couch didn't have any stuffing, and the wires were pop, it was basically something that was in really bad shape. But he's right, Councilman Estes is right, this would help, just for clarity, if no other reason, don't have an argument about what's junk or debris.
And to that point, even a brand new washing machine or brand new refrigerator, if it's sitting outside, it still creates that same safety issue. So that's what we're trying to take care of.
Mr. Varnell, thank you for the clarification. I agree with my colleagues that this will be helpful. But we also received quite a few reports of people, not city residents, who are bringing large amounts of furniture, debris, and dumping it at a rental property or a construction site so that our folks have to pick it up. Is there anything in this new ordinance change that speaks directly to
That's
different
a
section?
different section, it's enforceable, but what we find, with that is we're trying to track down, to a point, who's doing this, if you can catch them. That'd be the best thing, is to have some eyewitnesses and some pictures, but
We're also having a problem with, say you live in the county, and you've got a son or daughter that lives in the city.
they're bringing it to their.
They're
yeah.
bringing their trash and dropping it on trash day.
Yeah,
And,
they do that,
and it's almost impossible to enforce.
it is almost impossible to enforce. And people bring them into neighborhoods, including even, some of the ones that y'all may live in and around, and just dump it at the site where it usually is. We see that quite a bit.
Yeah.
But we're working through a couple of cases on that actively, so we'll continue to.
Are y'all looking at changing the ordinance on it, being a little more stricter at some point? or working
I
towards?
don't know that it needs a stricter interpretation. I
As
think
far
it's
as the
just.
size pile it is, or maybe?
Well, and then, we're looking at all options, but right now, the biggest question is finding out who's actually doing it. If we can do that, then that helps a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Varnell.
Let me add to that. We've had a number of conversations with Tommy Myers on what Councilman May had mentioned, and I've had a number of conversations with probably most of you. Probably the thing right now that we're developing language for are the landlords who will go and take all the belongings in a home and throw it out on the curb. And that usually creates significant issues, because all the stuff gets blown away, blown around, and people go through that. And there needs to be, I don't believe that the taxpayers should have to pay to have them come and pick that up. So we're working on some way to work with the landlords or the owners of the tenants that they're throwing all their stuff out, on how to deal with that. There are uniquenesses in that, because it's a tenant or landlord-tenant relationship, so you have to, what gets us is that the materials will only have to stay out there for 48 hours, John, or 24?
Sorry. You're talking about the sheriff putting somebody out in a landlord-tenant case. So if the judge gives them an order, a right to possession, and then the people do not vacate, after 10 days, they can go get an order of possession. The sheriff's office will put stuff out in the right of way.
48 hours.
Well, John, after they put it out on the curb, does it have to remain there for so many days? Is there a timetable?
Not in all the uniform residential landlord-tenant. There's not. Now, I don't know of any reason if the sheriff's office will plan on putting something out today in the city, they couldn't notify the city. And maybe you could, the problem is you can understand, you wouldn't want to pick it up immediately, whether there's a timetable or not, because this is somebody's possessions, and they may be, you know, have a bad situation, they're just trying to pick it up and go somewhere. Or it could be junk and debris, you don't know.
Yeah.
It's probably junk and debris, a good amount.
The issue is that all the taxpayers shouldn't have to pay to
No.
literally dispose of all this property and spend all that time.
And that is exactly the point, Mr. Fivas. I think that the taxpayers, it should not be the burden of the taxpayers to foot the bill for an eviction or a order of possession, all of that stuff,
Or illegal dumping.
or illegal dumping, all of the above. There are private companies that take care of this, that the landlord should be contracting, not just putting it at the end of the driveway, expecting the city of Cleveland and its taxpayers to foot the bill.
And we've also got landlords that, they've got property in the city and property in the county, and they'll do a renovation in the county and have the guys to haul their stuff to one of their pieces of property in the city for the city to pick up.
I think Councilman Cassada, Mr. Fivas, brought up a moment ago about is there a way to limit what is put at the end of a driveway, whether it's an order of possession or a person developing, and possibly a weight limit. There can be no more than X pounds allowed to be put at the end of your driveway.
Yeah, you couldn't do a weight limit. Usually you do, there's different ways to quantify that, to put a cap on what will take in one trip. That gets entirely complex, and we've had some discussions about how to do that. Is that there's gonna be a day that will probably, if the trends continue with what we're seeing, is at some point we'll have to make some hard decisions, because there is a lot of, or what we feel is a substantial amount of illegal dumping going on.
Certainly.
Because you see the same houses every week that have piles and piles of trash every single week.
Well, and I think if our colleagues at the county continue to raise the dump fees, it will continually get exponentially worse. I don't see any other remedy than for us to just not be in the pickup business in these kind of bad actors.
There's models out there that we're looking at, but at some point, the issue is going to have a cost variable, and we'll have to.
Sure.
We'll have to.
Well, just like
figure out
our,
a better process.
just like our future waste contracts, we've already been told are going up. The cost of Mr. Myers in Public Works is not going down, and so there doesn't seem to be a very bright outlook on that. So I look forward to getting whatever you're working on. Thanks.
Joe, I have a question, please. Is there, in the city codes, is there anything that tells how things should be put out at the road? Because I'm talking about, they'll just pile clothes out there, you know, things out of boxes, and then it just gets blown all over. You know, I'm having a problem in the south end with debris just blown all over down neighborhoods.
You talking about
Is there a code where they're supposed to
Michael
put that
Davis.
stuff out there in bags or something to keep that from happening?
I don't recall reading our ordinance and seeing anything like that, but I think that's part of the solution, potentially, if you did some rewrites of how to put, what's the proper way to put this stuff out there and take certain measures to protect it.
I said, because they're bundling them together.
I think that's a good question.
Both, he's got both listed.
Because quite often what happens is people will go and throw it in a ditch, and
His character, Jason.
it never-
That's a word.
it just accumulates over time.
And then too, we have a problem where, fortunately, some homeless people come by and take care of the bag, or people that go and get stuff for resale. They'll come by and they'll open the bags up, and then they'll tie them back, or they'll cut them, and then the stuff gets thrown.
That's right. That's all my report, unless there's any other questions.
Ready to drive, update Ready to Drive, same thing at Ready to Drive. He's on there.
Yeah, I mentioned that we have, pretty much everything's done, except that we don't have the keys and,
Okay, I'm sorry.
all that stuff is.
Great. So that concludes both the city manager's report and the review of the 3 o'clock agenda. Any other questions or comments from the council? We'll go straight to our reports from council members. Today, we begin with Councilman May. Councilman?
No, sir, I'll wait.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Hughes.
Yes, sir, just one thing. The property behind Panda was actually left in bad shape after the Panda job was finished. The area close to the curbs were dirt, and the street was somewhat damaged. And I received a call from a gentleman who was calling for his mother. And I went over and looked at it, and I did call the city manager, and he talked with Tommy, and Tommy's crew fixed it. But I think when individuals have a contract and go in and work on a piece of property, then if that property is somewhat damaged or left worse than it was, they're responsible for fixing it. And that's what I found when I went over to Panda. The nice curbing, the nice parking lot, but then there was an area there that was left unfinished. And holes in the road, and lady burst her tire on the road. And Tommy's crew came and fixed that, and she's grateful. She is a widow, lives by herself, and her son came by and he called and wanted some action. And there was rapid action that took place when I called Mr. Fivas. In one day, the crew was out there and did an excellent job. So thank you, Mr. Fivas and Tommy, for taking care of that situation.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Webb, you're recognized.
Tommy, I want to compliment one of your crews, but I have no idea who they were. So you'll have to compliment them all. On February the 10th, around noon, I was a participant in a funeral procession that was on Raider Drive. There was one of the Knuckleboom crews that was picking up some debris. As the procession started by, they stopped what they were doing. They got off of their vehicles, they took their caps off, and the family really appreciated that courtesy from the city employees. So if you would, pass that along.
It's awesome.
That's all, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Vice Mayor Johnson.
LNG.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman McKenzie. Thank you, madam. Councilman Estes. Thank you, sir. Councilman Cassida.
Yes, just two short questions. Joe, for your staff, Jim Sharp Park, I just asked how that process is coming along, where we're at with it.
Well, at the last meeting, you approved the agreement for the design consultant, and my guess is that we're working on that.
They're getting a survey done.
Yeah,
We're
survey
working on a
done.
survey.
Okay, can you, Patty, or either one of y'all keep me actively involved in what's going on with that project? So as people in the district are asking questions, I'll be.
Oh, I would be right in the middle of it, me and Brian Turner.
Okay, but I asked for me to be included on that too somewhat, just to keep me abreast, so when people ask me questions about it, I can at least give them some answers on that part. Okay, and next, Joe too, we do the budget review on the 13th, you said on that part. Is there any way to get like a summary from your staff of some changes that y'all were gonna recommend that we do on that budget? So can we get them ahead of time? If it's staff increase, decrease, whatever it may be, which y'all are looking at, maybe a week before, so we can look at it instead of getting it at the meeting itself?
The budget process isn't until May.
Right.
If we've identified something, we're happy to
Yeah.
pass it along.
Will you
but
share that with us ahead of time before we have the meeting, so we can?
Let me say it this way. By that time in the budget, we have a lot of wants out there,
Correct, I understand.
and so there haven't been a lot of decisions made.
Yeah.
And we're happy, the things that we know that we'll have to do, we can pass those along.
That's what I'm asking for, things you think that we need to move forward,
Things that are
move on.
trying to figure out, but we can speak to that if we need.
Can you you give us something, a list or something that what you're thinking of before time, so we can look at it and ask any questions before time? Okay. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. That concludes our reports from council members. We do not have any announcement for the 1 o'clock session, which means we are adjourned until our